Alright guys, so here we have a problem and it's asking us to find the inverse and state the domain and range of the inverse. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to determine, okay, if the inverse of this function, okay, is in fact going to be a function. Okay, so we can do that by performing a horizontal line test. So for example, if you had a quadratic, right, and you perform a horizontal line test, well, it hits 1, 2 points, right? And that would tell you that it's failed the horizontal line test. So if it fails the horizontal line test, that tells you that the inverse, okay, is not going to be a function. So for example, let's say this was x squared. Well, the inverse of this is not going to be a function. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. Okay, so we can see that we're dealing with a cubic, right? And we know that the graph of a cubic looks something like this. Okay, and so if you perform a horizontal line test on this, right? Well, it's only going to hit, okay, 1 point. Okay, no matter where you draw that. So the inverse of this is going to be a function. All right. Now our next step is to actually find this inverse, and to do that we're going to replace the x value with y and the y value with x. So again, this f of x, okay, is our y value. Now, since we determined that the inverse of this is going to be a function, we can actually write this in function notation, where we have something like this, right? So let's just first find the inverse, and then we'll write it in function notation. So we'll have the following. We have, just rewriting this, we have y equals x cubed minus 2, right? Now replacing the y with x and the x with y, we have x equals y cubed minus 2. And essentially what you want to do here is just solve for y. So we're going to add 2 on both sides. We get x plus 2 equal to y cubed, right? And then you're just going to take the cubed root on both sides in order to get rid of this exponent of 3. So we get the cubed root of x plus 2 equal to y. So here is our inverse. And since it is a function, we can write it in function notation. So our final answer will be like this. F inverse, right, equals the cubed root of x plus 2. Okay, so here is our final answer. Now we have to go ahead and state the domain and range. So again, if we go back to the graph of the cubic, we have something like this, right? And we know that we just took the inverse. So we essentially just replaced the x value with y and the y with x, okay? So we know the graph, okay, of this inverse is going to look like this, okay? And again, this tells us that the domain here is going to be all real numbers, and our range is also going to be all real numbers. Okay? And this problem is now complete.